To best serve us all, we cannot have any distractions. When a speaker is addressing the council, no disruptions are permitted. This includes talking over, yelling, and clapping. When this body proceeds with the day's business, we also need no disruptions. As per open meeting law, section 103, interruption of a speaker or government proceedings will not be tolerated. After one warning, anyone interrupting a speaker or the proceedings of today's meeting will be removed from chambers. Okay, one procedural note, we are changing the order, so public speaking will be moved up before the majority leader's speech. I am now calling this Common Council meeting to order at 7:35 p.m. on February 4th, 2025. If you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. May I please have roll call?
Alderman Pasty,
Here.
Alderman Tierney,
Here.
Alderman Scott Childress,
Here.
Alderman Edwards,
Here.
Alderman Mickens,
Here.
Alderman Dennison,
Here.
Alderman Andrews, Alderman Shabbat,
Here.
Alderman Hirsch.
Excused. We have a quorum. Can I have a motion to dispense with the minutes
Motion.
of the previous meeting and approve same? Motion by Steve Shabbat, second by Rennie Scott Childress. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted 8-0. Can I have a motion to dispense with the reading of the general bills? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress.
Second.
By Steve Shabbat. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted 8-0. We now enter into the public speaking portion of the meeting. We have allotted 30 minutes for this purpose. Speakers will have 3 minutes. Please be aware that I will give a verbal 30-second warning. If there are remaining speakers after 30 minutes, I will call for a motion from the council to extend the period for another 30 minutes. Speakers, direct your comments to the chair, as council members cannot engage in debate during this time. Please state your name and address on the record before you begin. There could be no distractions from the audience in chambers or on Zoom when a speaker addresses the council. The Common Council has also received written comments for our consideration, and they could be found on the city's website under tonight's agenda. May I have the first speaker, please?
Michael Hychuk.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, everyone. My name's Michael Hitchak. I live in 23 Patricia Drive. It's Pleasant Valley, New York. Been a Hudson Valley resident for 54 years. As a representative of IBW Local 320, that's International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, I'm here to say we are in opposition to the Hudson Valley Power Authority. On the surface, a public utility might look attractive, but the concept of public power creates more problems than it solves for ratepayers and union workers. Some examples of failed public power models are 1986, the Long Island Lighting Company, Lilco, private company with private shareholders and bondholders, was taken over by Long Island Power Authority, LIPA. The money borrowed by LIPA to pay Lilco for their assets has led to Long Island ratepayers having some of the highest power bills in the country. Ratepayers would be facing massive increases in their power bills. Ratepayers would bear the enormous burden of paying again for an existing system. The MTA, it's another public-run entity. Elected officials have stated there's been mismanagement, overspending, and underperformance. Puerto Rico has abandoned public power and are moving towards privatizing. For years, Puerto Rico's government has run the power authority, causing reliability issues leading to decades of random power outages. The PSC is a state regulator, which is responsible for closely examining the utility company for efficiency, reliability, safety before approving any of the rate cases. When utilities fail to provide service, they're penalized and required to make corrections to operate. Whereas if a local government-run power authority were to fail to provide service, there is no incentive to make corrective action. Creates a significant amount of debt. The investor-owned utilities own the assets that transmit and deliver the power. These assets would need to be purchased by the Hudson Valley Power Authority, creating debt that your grandchildren, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren will inherit. Not to mention the millions of taxpayer dollars in litigation. 2 minutes. I leave you to think about this. How is the Hudson Valley Power Authority going to make up for the nearly $60 million in property taxes that help support the budgets for the local police, fire, medical, and schools in our communities? In addition, there are claims to lower bills by instituting caps of 6%. How is that managed? Who pays for the usage over the cap of lower income households? I urge you to support and protect
30
ratepayers and
seconds.
union members by saying no to public power. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Daniel Woodham.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for your good work. I'm here to, my name is Daniel Woodham. I am at 88 Rentham Street in Kingston. My front yard's in Kingston, backyard's the town of Ulster. I'm here to ask you to vote yes on this resolution. I think that Kingston needs to lead as an example of public power in this area and needs to try to push the state to adopt this resolution. I speak as a private homeowner that has gone through a lot of confusing bills over the last few years and quite a mess, and then wondering how the heck are we paying such high prices? And I think all of us have probably experienced the, wow, you paid what? That has happened so many times. I got to say, as a customer, I have very little faith in this company. But I'm mostly here tonight because I'm a caseworker with newly arrived people in Kingston, and they are not here. There are reasons they are not here, and they are probably based mostly out of fear and anxiety. But I'm wanting to tell you that as a person working in a nonprofit, as a caseworker with these people, non-stop problems with Central Hudson, non-stop having to take people to Michelle Hinchy's office, to Assemblywoman Shrestha's office, to even Pat Ryan's office to say, could you please help sort this out? It was more a couple years ago, and just last 2 weeks ago, had to go with somebody that was being charged $11,000, but had a letter saying that they were in the green, in the black, and didn't owe anything. How confusing is that? So I have very little faith, and I am very happy to have had the experience in another state of living in a public power, which to me, it just makes sense. Power should be public. It should not be privatized. It should not have money made from it at our expense, and especially the expense of those that have less. So that's it. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Robert McGuyan.
Thank you. So Central Hudson has made several public statements in newspapers about the rate increases as to modernize the grid. However, reading through their financial statements, they seem to have a 2 or 3-fold estimated cost above that of what it would actually take to stabilize the grid and to modernize it. I'm not even sure if the grid can be modernized at this point without a total rework, and the amount of money is astronomical. My question is, how are the observatories going to make a full recommendation of where the power grid needs to be stabilized first and foremost, because the public safety really is of the utmost import, not the profits of whomever. So since 2021, Central Hudson has been in dire straits, as we all know. I don't have to reiterate that. But I'm worried about how their equity has expired with Fortis and when their eventual bankruptcy may actually take place. I'm just speculating, but I think a serious question needs to be asked if that's in fact a possibility and what the consequences of that could be. Also, I have concerns about their current bond ratings, as they're in BBB minus. They used to be at A minus back in 2011. So if they are allowed to continue, how much more debt are they going to take on? How many more rate increases will they need? And eventually, when will the mathematics just stop working? I mean, there has to be a limit at some point. So I don't want to take all the time, but the main point is, how much money will it cost to allow them to fail, do nothing, versus what will it cost us to do something? And more importantly, what is that thing that we can actually do? How do we set up an observatory function first and foremost that doesn't put the taxpayer on the hook for the entirety of the acquisition, so we can actually get to the real numbers and then approach it from a town basis and individually to address the most egregious parts, so that we don't just throw billions of dollars at a problem and then it wind up being the same problem or even worse, as the first gentleman said. And also, quite recently with Trump's tariffs and the policies and cutting off HEAP funding, and the state has had to put in a few months of a
30
stipend.
seconds.
But we have a lot of problems, and there's so many, and so many have happened in the last couple of days. I honestly don't know what to say, but I think the sooner that we address them is better than later and just waiting for it to fail and find out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jenny Bates.
Good evening, Council. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share my views. I'm a resident of Kingston. In spite of my British accent, I've been here for many, many years. I've lived in Kingston, uptown on Washington Avenue since 2009. I'm a renter, not a homeowner, but I've certainly had my fair share of erratic and unjustifiable Central Hudson bills. They seem to have settled down a bit, but I am here to ask you to vote yes for the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act. I come from a place of deep caring about this community. And there are three things, ideas, if you like, I'd like to share with you that move me, that motivate me. The first is creating frameworks of care. And I think that Kingston City could really be a place where everybody who lives here, everybody, and the non-human world could be cared for deeply, that the people in Kingston can trust that their needs are going to be met, that they will not have to choose between paying utility bills and buying food, that they will not have to lose their homes because they can't afford utility bills. I believe that Kingston must lead on energy democracy. I also come from a place of believing that we are living in rather chaotic and uncertain times, and we need to create a city and a community that has resilience. And one of the ways I believe a community can have resilience is to have sovereignty over the basic needs of everybody who lives here: food, water, education, and energy. So if we can claim sovereignty over the source of energy, the power, the utility, what do you call them? The utility company. That would really give us a lot to be strengthened by. I really believe in that. I think Hudson Valley Power Authority would be better for everyone, economically, technically, environmentally, democratically, and morally. Any profits made need to be given back to the people, not lining the pockets of a faceless corporate executive
30
in
seconds.
Canada. Thank you very much. The last thing I want to share with you is a quote from a Nobel Prize-winning chemist. He talked about creating islands of coherence. And I will quote his quote, and I will leave at that. In times, when a system is far from equilibrium, and I believe that's where we are, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the entire system to
Thank
a
you.
higher
Your time
order.
is up.
Let's create a Kingston, city of Kingston,
Thank
that
you.
is
Your
an
time is up.
island of
Thank you.
coherence,
Thank you.
and lift the entire
Thank you.
Hudson
Your time is
Valley
up.
to a higher order. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
John Salapoti.
If you don't get through your comments, you're more than welcome to email us, but we do ask that you maintain the 3 minutes. Actually, we insist that you maintain the 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Silipoti. Thank you to all the members on the council here. I'm here to ask you to vote yes for the Hudson Valley Power Authority. I believe this is a power and energy is a public issue. It's not a private equity issue. And private equity puts it behind a veil that we have no access to and cannot see. I've dealt with our power company, Central Hudson. It's a rat's nest. And what we have is a power company that's being run by a private equity firm based in Canada. We're faced in times where we're seeing how frail our system is, how quickly things can change. If tariffs were leveraged on Canada and we got into a trade war in Canada, would that affect our power? I don't know. I believe that we need to reclaim our public rights to have sovereignty over our power. It's not, there's no illusion that it will be done perfectly, but to have it in our hands is so important because it's our skin and it's our skin in the game. Private equity does not have any skin in this game. If it stops making money, they'll sell it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Kelly Holiday.
Good evening. Thank you for listening to me today. My name is Kelly Holiday and I live at 64 Stephen Street in Kingston. My husband and I moved here just 10 months ago. We are in support of the HVPA resolution. We chose this as our new home in our remaining years as it's a creative, progressive, community-oriented city that we loved the first time we visited. We've repeatedly heard from realtors, strangers in coffee shops, new neighbors, and friends that Central Hudson services are unreliable and very expensive. We didn't realize just how much until we started receiving bills. We rented at first and then bought a house in Midtown. Central Hudson bills at both dwellings were shocking, and the delivery charges were outrageous. We have never heard of anything like delivery charges before. We've lived in Texas and Washington State and have had experience with 6 different utility companies, which varied, including public, private utilities, cooperative, and nonprofits for both electric and natural gas. This foray into being dependent on Central Hudson as a corporate, private, for-profit monopoly utility is disheartening and scary. Utilities are a basic human need, and without them, vulnerable populations can die from extreme heat or cold. I am aware Central Hudson says that it will not cut off heat from November 1st to April 15th, but some people may self-select to not stay warm for fear of the bill. And what happens come April 15th? Kingston is already experiencing a housing crisis and unaffordability. The current utility system only exacerbates this. Now we have a chance to do something different. My spouse and I fear for the exorbitant costs the current utility system will bring us in the years to come when we have an even more limited income as we age. We noticed Central Hudson's greed when they requested a rate increase right after they had just been granted one. We value the hard work of the frontline Central Hudson workers. It's demanding work that can occur at all hours and be dangerous. Their employment and rights would be protected under the Hudson Valley Power Authority. I doubt that the rate increases are for their pay or safety. Thank you for hearing my concerns. I value your leadership. Please govern by putting people over profits, and I urge you to vote yes in support of this resolution.
Thank you. Just a reminder, if you could keep talk down, there's some noise and it carries, it's surprising how much it carries. Thank you, appreciate it. Next speaker, please.
Sharon Boyd.
Sorry, not speaking about the gas problem. The city of Kingston received a $21.7 million grant in June 2023. And the specific goal was for the revitalization of the waterfront district. So far, Rondout Waterfront District has received very few benefits from the revitalization. 20 Broadway used to be our visitor center. It was the first place tourists came from the American Cruise Line ships, and they'd ask questions, find out where to go, spend the day. Also, we have American Cruise buses that stop on the waterfront. Many times they ask, where's the visitor center? So 20 Broadway, being the former visitor center, is probably worth about $500,000. And it's sitting in disrepair, empty, being used for storage, I'm told. So several merchants and residents alike would like to see that reopened so that it can generate tourism. Now, tourism doesn't seem like an urgent need right now, but in the summer, it attracts people who are going to spend their money in the Rondout, which, of course, adds to its prosperity. So it may seem like a trivial item, but not. We've been asking for new parking in the Rondout for months and months. Merchants, people drive around in circles trying to find a parking spot, especially on the weekends. And finally, some of them give up. So there are a lot of things we can do with that money, which are very cosmetic. And I think we need to start using it. And as for the 9W arterial
30 seconds.
reconfiguration, I think it's a step backwards. The new development of 200 more apartments and 30,000 square feet of mixed-use space is going to add a lot more residents and people to the area who need to get in and out.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Catherine Breen.
There is a real crisis when people are opting out of the democratic process, no longer believing the government is capable of fixing the broken system. Therefore, I think it is critical now more than ever to create a positive role for the government and for the public sector. Basic needs like housing, healthcare, and government are for the public sector. They're being hijacked by large corporations that need large profits. Passing Hudson Valley Power Authority is a part of a bigger fight to reclaim our public goods. But the bill's goals is not simply to remove the profit motive. It is also to create a model utility that acts like a community institution. An energy delivery company is permanently rooted in a specific location, which means it has the potential to become an anchor institution. In other words, it has the potential to partner with the community to create a mutual long-term benefits for both the utility and the community. Our goal here is to create a thriving utility that puts its assets in service of the community where it operates. As an example, this bill annually transfers a portion of the revenue into a community-controlled trust funds, and it has created a participatory budget process where the local electeds, like you, can play a part in deciding how to spend that money. Similarly, it also creates a community oversight body where local electeds, academic experts, environmental justice advocates, the workers, and more can play a role in holding the utility accountable. In other words, we are creating a public utility that is also accountable to the community. But how do we get the governor to sign this bill into law? By showing overwhelming local support from the bottom up. This is not a bill that affects the whole state, so that means local support carries a much larger weight. The Kingston Common Council passing this resolution would show exemplary leadership at the local level and give other localities the confidence to do the same. It would demonstrate that it is not too late. Our democracy can still work to serve its people's needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sarah Venditti.
Hello, my name is Sarah Vendetti. I live at 46 Washington
Can you just
Avenue.
get a little closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
My name is Sarah Vendetti. I live at 46 Washington Avenue. I'm from Kingston originally, but I moved back here after living in Los Angeles because I thought it would be more affordable to live here. And unfortunately, a number of years ago when I was renting, this is just my own personal story, I was renting and I spent 2 months away. So I wasn't in my rental for 2 months. And when I came back, when the billing cycle came up, I had an insane bill that was so high, I couldn't believe it. So I called Central Hudson to ask, how is this possible? I hadn't even been in the place in 2 months, and they told me that it was based on the year before when I hadn't lived there. The people that had lived in the house before me were running medical equipment for a dying person for 24 hours a day. So they based my bill off of the year previous for other people who live there. So I said, I can't pay this bill. I was a newly single mom with 2 small children. I was given there was no accountability. I was forced to pay that bill. It put me in a really awful position, and it was extremely traumatizing for me. And so any chance I get to speak out against Central Hudson for a situation like that, and hopefully that never happens to other people again, and that people can pay bills that are accurate to like their actual usage. And so when somebody showed me this, I said, of course, hopefully you guys will, I'm asking you to vote yes on this resolution. So hopefully you guys can understand that every person that I know in Kingston who lives in Kingston has a similar story to me about some crazy situation where they were paying some bill that didn't make sense to, either their usage or, whatever it is, or that they couldn't afford it and they didn't have a choice whether to pay that bill or not. So thank you for listening. And
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Ellie Kelsheimer.
Hello, my name is Elle Keltzheimer, and I live here in Kingston at 23 South Washington. I wanted to share my struggles with Central Hudson as an organization to highlight that the company's incentives can never be in our best interest, although I have little doubt that the local employees are good people and very hard workers. On October 24th, 2024, my husband and I dropped $36,000 of our own money for a solar array and battery because we wanted personal resilience, and we also want to contribute to the resilience of our local grid. Infinity Solar, who we worked through, had finished our installation, and we're excited to have the solar through the cold winter, which in conjunction with our geothermal would give us clean, cheap heat. Every step was unreasonably slow to achieve with Central Hudson. Only when we contacted Sarah Hannah Shresta's office and they put in a call on our behalf did they take us seriously and call us back. That was January 13th. I had to be rather forceful and threaten bad press in another call to Shresta, and lo and behold, the very next day, they completed the next step they had been holding off on for months. And just today did the panels go online. So we missed out on hundreds of dollars in savings, which I'm obviously not happy about. While I'm sure all the local employees are good people just doing their best, Central Hudson as an organization has no incentive to deliver cost-effective, clean, or reliable power to your constituents, and they are a direct threat to household and community resilience. Taking the power out of the hands of a for-profit corporation would introduce accountability and stop siphoning our hard-earned money out of the area. So I'm asking to please support the Power Authority and vote yes on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
M.K. Scully.
Hi, my name is MK Scully. I own a home in Connolly, and I've lived in the Hudson Valley and been a Central Hudson customer for about 15 years. Unlike everybody else, I actually don't have any Central Hudson horror stories, but I still want to express my support for HVPA. As I see it, this is a bill that offers a chance to improve the lives of everyone in Ulster County, as well as a chance for Kingston to continue to demonstrate leadership in progressive policy. It's especially important now, at a time when the US is experiencing record inflation that's only projected to get worse, to act on opportunities like this one that can actually lower our cost of living. I also want to reiterate that HVPA is not a pipe dream. Municipal public power entities have been established in New York before, so to write this off as a utopian fantasy is simply incorrect. We can do this, and we should. Taking control of public resources is a massive step in the right direction. Let's show our neighbors that positive, significant change is within reach at the local level. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Emily Brigulia.
Hi, I'm Emily Bergoglio. I am a homeowner in Esopus and an Ulster County resident. And Kingston is the center of my community here in the Hudson Valley. When I first moved into my home with my spouse, we were so excited. It was our first home. We were also terrified because we didn't know if we would be able to make it. It was after a horrible housing search, as you all know. It's just incredibly inaffordable to live here. But we were excited to be there and to get started. We got our first Central Hudson bill, and it was really low. And we were relieved, and we felt that maybe we would be okay. We got our next one, and it was astronomical. We were not expecting it, and we cried because we didn't think that we were going to be able to make it here. As we've heard, a lot of other people have these similar stories, and that's why I'm here to support the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act. I have friends who also work for Central Hudson, and they also have very high bills, and they are also struggling. I am grateful that this bill supports the workers of Central Hudson. I would not support it otherwise. And I do believe that this is something that is going to benefit Kingston in the long run, putting the power back in the hands of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, it's 30 minutes. Do I have a motion to extend for another 30 minutes? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, seconded by Michael Tierney. All in favor? Opposed? We have another 30 minutes on the clock. Next speaker, please.
Blake Edwards.
Hi, I'm Blair Edwards. I'm a homeowner in High Falls, and my whole time living here, I've had Central Hudson because it's the only option. I'm lucky enough to be able to afford the ridiculously high bills, but it disturbs me that there are so many who cannot. Like, I'm lucky with the job that I have, and I know the bills I have. If I had kids, or if I was like less fortunate economically, these bills would be incredibly stressful. They're enraging, but not like, oh, do I have to choose between food and electricity? Well, I know that is the case for other people. I'm obviously here to speak in favor of the HVPA. To me, it just makes no logical sense that New York's power is lining the pockets of a Canadian finance company and Canadian businessmen, and they're very clearly not held accountable, but continue to give themselves giant raises. The last bonuses were around $1.4 million. To me, that makes no sense. If you are so lowly rated in your service, how are you getting that high of a bonus? I can't imagine anyone here has recently got a bonus of that percentage. So yeah, it just makes sense that New York Power should be at the benefit of New Yorkers. The profits should stay in New York. And from a logistical, long-term city health perspective, that's what makes sense. The less people can afford things, the larger the economic gap grows, the more people are homeless. And then, I lived in Venice Beach, and you can live there. You can choose to live in a $6 million apartment, or you can live on the street. Those are the options. It would be really depressing if that's what happened to Kingston. I don't know where people are supposed to go when they can't afford their rent, but also their heat. You can't live here without heat. It's not possible. So yeah, I'm in favor for the HVPA. And like previous people said, it's not a pipe dream. It's been done before. No change is perfect, but why not try to make a change that could benefit people when pretty much everyone that I've spoken to is not happy with the current monopoly. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jenna Goldstein.
Hi, my name is Jenna Goldstein. I'm a For the Many community organizer here in Ulster County. I lived in Kingston for 2 years and Hudson Valley for 15. In that time, I struggled with the extremely high utility bills from Central Hudson, which has jacked up rates year after year to boost their own profits. This is not going to stop because the energy sector is expensive to run and for-profit companies can pass all of their costs plus the profit margin to the ratepayer. I am asking you to support the resolution regarding the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act because this is a bottom-up fight to tell Governor Hochul that we must establish the HVPA to address two of the biggest issues Kingston residents have with their current provider: inconsistent service and excessive cost, while also providing cleaner energy for our region. HVPA would give workers a seat on the Board of Trustees and 2 seats on the Observatory's governing board, while maintaining their current benefits, retirement plan, their union, and their right to strike. Plainly put, HVPA would give the workers more protections in hiring and a louder voice in setting the rates. The city has a responsibility and an opportunity to ensure Kingston remains affordable, and lowering utility costs and creating a community benefit through HVPA would help do that. I urge you to support this resolution. Kingston should continue to set the example for what other Hudson Valley cities aspire to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Charlotte Roy.
Good evening, council members. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Charlotte Royer. I live down the street, actually, on Hasbrook Avenue here in Kingston. I'm here largely as a proud union member and someone from a long line of union members as well. And I appreciate the Central Hudson Union members who are here tonight as well, but I'm here as a member of this community to ask you to vote yes on this bill. As ratepayers, including myself, face the unsustainable consequences of a for-profit energy system, our workers, our Central Hudson workers, are at the front line of receiving wrath from all of the frustrated customers. I'm sure some of us have been among them. The good thing about this act is that it isn't designed to just protect us as the ratepayers, it's also designed to protect Central Hudson workers. When HVPA acquires Central Hudson, no workers will be displaced. They'll remain as is. This is part of why I support this bill. The only thing that will change is ownership and the Board of Trustees. But even more, under the current system, everything that the workers need, whether that's wage increases or new equipment, has to be funded through a rate increase. So that gets passed on to us as the customers. This has led the worker union to support the rate increase request. And this dynamic unnecessarily pits the worker needs against the ratepayers. Under the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act, worker needs can be prioritized without exuberant rate increases, because access to lower cost capital and removal of the profit motive means more money will be available to fund worker needs. Not only that, the bill creates an internal mandate to protect workers, and it gives them new protections and power that they don't currently have. First, the union will get a seat in the Board of Trustees and 2 seats on the governing board of the oversight body. Second, the hiring of workers transitioning off fossil fuel or living in the service territory will be prioritized, and hiring of union workers will also be prioritized over short-term contractors. Third, the workers will keep their private sector status so that they don't lose their current pensions and right to strike. In Messina, New York, workers of the corporate utility were some of the strongest opponents of a public takeover. But once the takeover happened, they joined the public utility union and they remain there today with no problem and with a better quality of life. I thank the Central Hudson workers
30
for enduring
seconds.
their difficult jobs and for keeping the system running despite all the hurdles. And I urge the Kingston Common Council to vote yes on this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jennifer Donovan.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Donovan. I am a resident of Kingston and the Hudson Valley at 214 North Manor, but I am here today to um, represent local business owners and those who own commercial buildings in Uptown Kingston. My name is Jennifer Donovan. I'm the owner of La Shag and its offshoot companies, as well as the Maiden Boutique Inn in Uptown Kingston. I'm a Benedictine-born BOCES, KHS, and New Paltz University graduate. My family originally, who's from East Kingston, has lived here for generations and continues to call this community home. I opened my first business here when I was studying at New Paltz in 2005 with the intention of creating a generational business that will continue here without me involved, hopefully. I have maintained a strong employee and guest retention over the last almost 20 years. Over the past few years, Kingston's local businesses have felt the impact of the increasing prices, but for small businesses, it's become unbearable. Energy bills have skyrocketed to unsustainable levels. Imagine trying to budget for your business when every month your electricity bill jumps with no relief in sight. These aren't small increases, they're massive hikes that threaten to close doors, eliminate jobs, and weaken our local economy. This past holiday season, I saw too many small businesses openly struggling, worried about making ends meet, and the top of these complaints is always the energy bill. While we want to support our employees with fair wages and benefits, the reality is that our expenses are increasing faster than our ability to generate revenue. Most especially when we cannot plan or explain these increases. If this continues unchecked, it won't just be businesses that suffer, it will be the entire community. When small businesses are forced to raise prices just to survive, customers pay more for everyday services. And if businesses shut down, jobs disappear, storefronts go dark, and communities lose their vibrancy. I've seen it happen here before, and I don't want to see it happen again. We need real solutions. We need relief with these excessive energy costs. Not
30
only,
seconds.
not only is it incredibly challenging for current business owners, but it has been discouraging for other businesses to want to open here or for entrepreneurs to want to move here. So I'm hoping that you vote yes for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Howard Weiss.
Good evening. My name is Howard Weiss. I'm a volunteer with For the Many, and I've been a resident Brewster Street, 53 Brewster Street, since 2019. Like many Kingston residents, affordability has become more and more of an issue for me over time. As a senior citizen, I live on a fixed income from Social Security, and I can tell you it's no fun watching the numbers come out from Central Hudson and trying to figure out how to make that work with the meager cost of living increase that's coming from Social Security each year. Some rising food costs, like food and the price of gas, are more influenced by national policies. But our local and regional legislators, like yourselves, do have the power to rein in prices that we pay for housing and utilities. I urge you to support the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act, which would move us away from Central Hudson's excessive rates towards cleaner energy and improved service. Taking this path would be enormously popular in Kingston and Ulster County. We'd be hard pressed to find significant support for Central Hudson, a business whose primary goal is making money. Of course, this will not be a quick process, and there will be challenges along the way, but we know that sticking with the status quo will only bring more hardship that will keep adding financial stress to our neighbors' lives. We can do better, and I urge you to support the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Will Nixon.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me. My name is Will Nixon. I live at 21 Brown Avenue in Midtown. And I'll say this. The fight for who should own energy is as old as energy itself. From Governor Charles Evans in the early 1900s to Governor and then President FDR in the 1930s, New York has seen fierce advocates for public power. In other words, an energy sector owned by the public. This is not a new fight. This is an old fight. To the north of us, it took the small town of Messina 7 years of legal battles and referendum before it successfully took over the territory of the national grid and flipped the switch to a new publicly owned utility. An article from New York Focus says that when it finally happened in 1981, utility drills dropped by a quarter, and the town hasn't looked back since. Today, Messina residents pay some of the cheapest rates for electricity, 4 cents per kilowatt hour, all charges included. The issues ratepayers are facing is not actually the fault of one company alone. It is not the fault of Central Hudson. It's the fault of the entire system. After receiving double-digit increases, Con Edison is filing for another double-digit increase. Corporate utilities across the state have gotten increases. And a new report finds that over the last 3 years, nationwide, investor-owned utilities' residential electricity rates have increased 44% more than inflation. 44% more than inflation. While publicly owned utilities have increased 44% less than inflation. As of September 24, 2024, nearly 1/4 of U.S. households were unable to pay their energy bills in at least 1 month in the past year. I find that shocking. It's not just Central Hudson, it's all of them. I thank the Kingston Common Council for this opportunity and urge you to vote yes on this resolution. I'll leave you with the words of a man named Tom Johnson, who in 1901 ran to be mayor of Cleveland on the platform of public
30
power.
seconds.
He said, Tom Johnson said, "I believe in the municipal ownership of these monopolies because if you do not own them, they will own you." Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Bravin Ranga.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Bravin Runga. I'm the political director at For the Many. Our office is at 13 Grand Street. We've been organizing around climate and utility justice for almost a decade now in the Hudson Valley. We fought against proposed rate hikes proposed by Central Hudson in 2015, fought for an expanded utility assistance fund in 2016, and in 2017, we're behind a successful PSC investigation against Central Hudson that fined it for its discriminatory practices. We fought to elect climate champions, and with our allies, we're able to help pass one of the most transformative Green New Deal victories in the state and country through the Build Public Renewables Act. Year after year, we've heard similar stories from our members. Central Hudson charging ridiculous amounts for electricity and gas, forcing working class families to have to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars for basic necessities, especially in the winter, shutoffs that have forced people into the cold, all while relying on dirty fossil fuels that are destroying our environment and degrading our earth for future generations, while New York State fails to meet its legally mandated climate goals. The underlying issue is a profit incentive for a basic necessity. That leads to extraordinary high rates that Central Hudson can charge because they know that we're all going to be forced to pay, and a reliance on fossil fuels despite the destruction to our environment. Like roads or firefighting or schools, utilities are something that so obviously should be brought under public ownership, because otherwise we're stuck with a private monopoly that we all are forced to pay. And through the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act, it would guarantee lower rates for ratepayers as well as transition us to renewable energy. This is an issue that is deeply popular with your constituents. Everybody hates Central Hudson, Republicans and Democrats alike. Recent polling from Data for Progress of likely general election voters in the Hudson Valley found that 60% view private utility companies in a negative light, and nearly 90% think that utility companies are overcharging New Yorkers. I'll also add that the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act guarantees strong labor protections, gives labor representation on the governing board, and protects their union. So increases the power of labor in that
30
utility.
seconds.
Assemblymember Shrestha and Senator Hinchey, by introducing this bill, are listening to their needs of their constituents and labor unions by proposing this legislation, and I urge this Common Council to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Naomi Dan.
Hi, my name is Naomi Dan. I live in Midtown Kingston on O'Neill Street. I am here to support the resolution to establish the Hudson Valley Power Authority, and I urge you to vote for it tonight. I think that this bill is a really visionary effort to address a whole bunch of different problems that are facing our community. Number one, energy costs are too high. Number two, we're not making the transition to green energy fast enough. And to the extent that Central Hudson is doing so, they're passing those costs along to consumers and asking for additional rate increases year after year. And three, Central Hudson's billing has been unreliable, confusing, and abusive, honestly, to the people of this community. I'm excited about this proposed public power authority because it will create an entity that is dedicated to the public, not to profit. I don't think that our utilities, which are an essential thing for everyone to live, should be owned by corporate monopolies. This bill will preserve and enhance the rights of workers and will help accelerate the transition to green energy and ensure that those costs aren't passed along to consumers so that we can all continue to afford the utilities that make life possible. I urge you to support the resolution. I think that your vote tonight will make a very big difference to the state legislature. They're looking to hear from the people who are affected, who are in the service territory, and your vote will be the deciding factor for them. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Phil Erner.
Good evening. Here to support resolution numbers 18. We've heard about how this can be a just transition for the workers as well as our community after the state passed the Build Public Renewables Act. As far as property taxes go, someday, hopefully soon, they'll be beside the point. But if you think about it, the ratepayers are basically paying themselves back, those who are real property owners. So that's not an issue as far as I'm concerned. We've heard how really what needs to happen is the ratepayers, which is most of us in this room, and the workers need to unite. If you remove the shareholders, that money can go to lowering rates, raising wages, and improving the infrastructure. An example from my time in the legislature where we use the government, which is really there to protect the weak from the strong. We made the buses free. We raised the driver and dispatcher wages all in the same budget year. So that's just another example of how the public sector can make services more affordable, working conditions better. And actually you have the responsibility to do that. So I hope that you will tell the state that. I also support resolution 26 for the former Grand Slam transferring to the land bank. It's too bad that Beyond the Four Walls couldn't make it work. But if these become homes to buy that are truly affordable to lower wealth income residents, then I'm all for that. I also want to say we need justice for Gary White. We need the mayor to release the police department report, and it should be of interest to everyone of you because implicated in the death is a resident relative of a city worker who's also a public county officer. But certainly implicated also is the traffic engineering, the general architecture.
30 seconds.
I'll end with a tune. Conditions, they are bad, and some of you are sad. You cannot see your enemy, the class that lives in luxury. You working folk are poor, will be forevermore. So long as we permit the few to guide our destiny, shall we still be slaves and work for wages? It is outrageous, been thus for ages. The earth by right belongs to all us toilers, and not to spoilers of liberty. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Allison McIntyre.
Hello, my name is Allison McIntyre from Ward 1. I'm here to support the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act. As many people in this room, have had a terrible time with Central Hudson, and many times have had to choose between paying my rent and paying the Central Hudson bill. I will say that the only time I ever felt relief from this company was when I did contact Assemblymember Sarah Hannah Stressla's office. Otherwise, I've not heard anything from them. Their bills are ridiculous, and they're not reflective of my 2-bedroom apartment. I'm also here to speak about traffic safety in Kingston, and to also remind you of Gary White's life, which has seemed to have already been forgotten. There must be accountability here in Kingston, and that accountability is not putting more cops on the street. It is not giving out more tickets. It is creating safe infrastructure for people who walk and who bike and who can't afford to have a car because you have to pay rent that's excessive and you have to pay your energy bills to have heat to live. So yeah, prayers and broken promises are not enough. People are dying. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Chelsea Valaba.
Good evening, Council. Over the last several years, local renters and homeowners alike have been deeply impacted by the exorbitant, unmanageable prices of planet-damaging fossil fuels. You are all members of this community. I imagine that most, if not all of you, have been impacted by a gas electric bill that was far outside of your expected budget. The Hudson Valley Power Act, sponsored by Assemblymember Shrestha and State Senator Hinchey, has clear potential to build trust between community members and their local governments in a time where deregulation and privatization run rampant. The Central Hudson Customer Service Department, frankly, has been appalling. Incorrect bills, inefficient communication, and our current economic model. Consumers should have the opportunity to stop business with an entity that provides unsatisfactory service. Unfortunately, that is not an option because the life-sustaining service of power in this area is held hostage by a self-proclaimed monopoly. As many before me, like the elected civil servants that sponsored this law, I implore you to adopt this resolution. Government exists to serve, protect, organize, and develop our communities. The only reason that children and the elderly do not freeze to death in the winter when their electric bills cannot be paid is because of state protections. Left up to a monopoly, the result is always profit over people and planet. As public civil servants, protect your people
And if that's not enough, protect yourselves because you never know what life-altering event tomorrow could hold. Additionally, I request, as other speakers have requested, that the City of Kingston Police Department release the police report regarding the death of Gary White. Gary White was a community member that was valued, that served his community, and his memory should not be forgotten and steamrolled over because of how his life ended or who ended it. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Melissa Hoffman.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I'm an organizer with Food and Water Watch, fighting to stop the expansion of fossil fuels in the Hudson Valley. The Hudson Valley deserves the chance to source energy from clean, renewable energy. But Central Hudson is blocking efforts for a large-scale clean energy transition to take place. The Hudson Valley Power Authority will give our region the chance to control our own energy supply. A private company focused on increasing financial returns is not a company that cares about what is best for the residents of the Hudson Valley. We are already facing environmental pollution from power plants, compressor stations, and pipelines. Kingston City Council already passed a resolution opposing the expansion of the Iroquois pipeline. It is time to take your solidarity to the next level and create a systemic change in the way we manage and allocate energy. Further, we know that Central Hudson is scared of us, our power as people, to collectively understand when we are being taken advantage of with outrageous rate hikes, and to wake up and take action to create an energy system that will provide affordable rates and expand the clean energy transition. Further, there are plenty of people that want jobs in clean energy in building a just energy system. So let's make that happen by passing the resolution to build the Hudson Valley Power Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to switch over to Zoom. We have one person who signed up ahead of time, so bear with us while we make this switch. And Jean, you have to have your camera on. We need to actually see you.
I already sent Elisa a message. I don't have that opportunity right here on mine, right? I've tried.
Then we can't have you speak tonight. Council, that's the end of the 30 minutes. There's also the end of the list. So I'll open up to the floor if you want to open up to another 30 minutes. Motion by Michael Tierney, second by Rennie Scott Childress. All in favor to open up? Anyone opposed? Is there anybody else who has not spoken yet in chambers who would like to? Just make your way up. And you have 3 minutes. Please give your name and address for the record. And if, so before you go, if you're leaving, if you could do so quietly, especially going down the stairs, because it's very loud and we want to be able to hear the speakers. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for hosting this public comment period. My name is Ashley Walterich. I live at 55 Washington Ave in Kingston. I just recently moved here a couple of weeks ago, actually, and a big reason I chose the apartment I did was because the utilities are already paid for. Because when I was moving here, a lot of the things online about the Kingston community, you know, as people have mentioned in this room, mentioned Central Hudson, and that was a big factor in where I looked to live. And I think we've done a lot tonight explaining why we dislike Central Hudson, but I think I kind of want to reiterate why I like the idea of the Power Authority. Is in the fact that I think our first speaker of the night did mention that some public electrical systems don't work. And we've also heard stories of some that do, especially some here in New York State. And I think the ultimate factor to whether a public electrical system can work or not is the people here locally that are running it. And even in such a short time, I've grown to trust the people of Kingston. And I truly do think that it's a great community here. And, you know, even just the determination and the vigor and the liveliness in this room, it's not something you get everywhere. So I really do believe this is a community that can do it right. And I hope that you as a council also, you know, that have been here even longer and I'm sure have much more memories with how great of a community this is, also have faith in Kingston and that we can do this. So I hope I am in support of the Hudson Valley Power Authority and I hope that you all will vote that way as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There were a couple more hands up, so if you want to come up in the back.
Hi, thank you to the council for your time and thank you to the workers at Central Hudson for all their hard work. My name is Cam Miller. I'm a Kingston resident and a lifelong Hudson Valley resident. Here are the top 3 reasons I could think of to support the Hudson Valley Power Authority. 1, to lower the cost of living for everyone in this room. We have all heard the many stories of the Central Hudson monopoly price gouging our local families and local businesses and putting so many of us deep into debt. One fact that pisses me off is in Central Hudson's last request for a price hike, they included about $1.5 million in bonuses for their CEOs. Because HVPA will have no profit motive, we can guarantee it'll bring down rates just as public power has brought down rates in other parts of New York and the country. 2, to help the local economy. When all this money leaves our community, where does it go? Well, Central Hudson is a subsidiary of a Canadian company, not a company based in the Hudson Valley or even this country. In other words, when Central Hudson is a gaping sinkhole in our local economy. 3, to fight climate change. A corporation with a profit motive has no motivation to abandon dirty fossil fuels and transition to renewable energy sources. And the proof is in their lack of progress in meeting New York State's goal in reaching 70% of electricity from renewables by 2030, which is just around the corner, and 100% zero emissions electricity by 2040. I'm speaking, of course, about the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. The fight against climate change is a bottom-up fight. Nobody is coming to save us, certainly not the federal government under this administration or any other in recent memory. It's up to us at the local and state level to stand up and make this happen. To reiterate my 3 points: 1, lower each family's cost of living; 2, plug a sinkhole in our local economy; and 3, to take action against climate change. Let's together stop putting profits above people and the environment. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Anthony Fitzpatrick. I live on Georgia Street in Port Ewan. I can only speak for myself, but tonight I wanted to give a brief shout out to the 70 by 30. For those of you who do not know, this is Ulster County's plan to reach 70% renewable energy sources by the year 2030. And it is absolutely remarkable how many solutions are in this document. But what is a lot less surprising is how many of these things are not sustainable in an economic sense because of Central Hudson. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Owen Gilroy. I'm a renter at 43 Heinell Road, and I'm also a warehouse worker who's working day and night to try and unionize my shop. As the ratepayers in Kingston face the consequences of a for-profit energy system that was stacked against them, Central Hudson workers are often right at the front line receiving grief from frustrated customers. They have been for years. The good thing about the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act is that it isn't designed just to protect ratepayers, but to protect Central Hudson workers as well. When the Power Authority acquires Central Hudson, workers will stay right where they are in the city of Kingston. The only thing that will change is the ownership of the Board of Trustees. Under the current system, every last thing that the workers need, be that their wages, benefits, or equipment necessary on the job, have to be funded through rate increases. Uh, this has sapped the support of union workers for the Power Authority unnecessarily, as there's no reason really to pit ratepayers against the workers. It's a game that was set up by the board of Central Hudson so that they can benefit at our expense. Under the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act, workers will be prioritized without crazy rate increases because access to lower cost capital and the removal of the profit motive from the way our public utility is doled out will make more money available for everything that the workers need, primarily their wage increases, their benefits, and everything else that comes with a good union job. Not only that, the bill creates an internal mandate to protect workers and gives them protections such as a seat on the Board of Trustees, as well as 2 seats on the governing board. Second, it hires workers transitioning off of fossil fuels or living within the service territory of the city, being prioritized for jobs rather than contractors being brought in from outside. Thirdly, the workers will keep their private sector status so that they don't lose the power, they don't lose their current pensions or the right to strike in order to strengthen their arm during negotiations. In Messina, New York, as many other speakers have exemplified, workers of the
30 seconds.
Workers of the corporate utility were some of the strongest opponents of the public takeover at first, but once the takeover happened, they joined the public utility union and they remain there today with no problem and with a better quality of life, just like everyone else receiving power in that municipality. I think Central Hudson workers, I thank Central Hudson workers for enduring their difficult jobs, just like mine in the warehouse, and for keeping the system running despite all their hurdles. I urge the
Thank you. Your
Kingston
time is up.
Council
Thank
to
you.
approve the measure.
Is there anyone else who has not spoken that would like to?
Good evening, council members. My name is Cameron Casera. I'm a renter on Prince Street, just over there. I'm a new resident to the city of Kingston, but a lifelong resident of the Hudson Valley. I felt it was important to come and share my view tonight because I've worked in the construction and architecture industry for the past 6 years in the Hudson Valley. So much of the work I do every day is convincing private citizens and businesses to invest in sustainable future utilities. And in this current day, that's mini split heat pumps, which are an electrical utility service for heating and cooling. It is hard for us to prepare for future generations for green and renewable power without deep energy retrofits of existing buildings. This is a lot of money and investment up front. Supporting clean renewable energies means that we are going to be using more electrical utility services. Having accountability for the prices of those services is essential to getting people to make this switch. So I believe that the Hudson Valley Power Authority will have the ability to engage citizens with the process of creating a more sustainable future and having more accountability to where their utilities are coming from and being sourced. So I encourage you to support the act. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, I will close the public speaking portion. Rennie, do you want a 5-minute break or? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then come back with our majority leader's speech for the year. So 5 minutes, council. Thank you. The floor is yours, Rennie.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. This is an annual right of the Common Council to have the majority leader say a few words about our achievements in the past year, think about the future, give some consideration to the state of the world. We're in a very different place than we were a year ago. We are now in a period of chaos, cruelty, and confusion. Recent actions coming from Washington, D.C. have created a very difficult situation for so many people here in Kingston. We've seen how one order from one person in the current administration led to chaos. People at Kingston Housing Authority were utterly in fear because they were worried that they were not going to be able to pay their rents because of not getting subsidies from the federal government. Students at SUNY New Paltz, where I teach, were thinking that they might not be able to access their student loans. Other students were worried about their families who are in an undocumented status. We've seen a number of issues coming from Washington that affect us directly here in Kingston. Unfortunately, we can't do much to predict the future. That makes it difficult for us to figure out some of our planning. So while we might not be able to do some specific planning, I think there's some things that we definitely want to look to. Before we talk about that, though, I'd like to set a baseline by talking about some of the achievements that we've made over the past year. We're quite proud of a lot of the work that we've done. We've demonstrated our close attention to the deepest concerns expressed to us by the residents of Kingston in a lot of different issues. In terms of traffic, we lowered the speed limit in the city of Kingston to 25 miles an hour. This is something that I first called for over 8 years ago. And after years of fruitless questioning, attendance at traffic engineering meetings, that's how much I'm sacrificing for you all, going to traffic engineering meetings, as well as discussions with state elected officials, advocates here in the city of Kingston, and others. I was particularly gratified when Governor Hochul finally signed legislation allowing municipalities to go below the former statewide 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. As we have long noted, that 5-mile increment going from 30 to 25 is the most important increment of any other one. It's the one at which you reduce by the most amount crashes, injuries, and damage. We've also looked to adopting the safe systems approach to traffic safety. The aim of this approach is to reconceptualize how we think about traffic safety. For example, we will emphasize concepts of shared responsibility for traffic safety and develop proactive approaches to identify safety issues rather than waiting to amass data as a reason for taking corrective action. The aim here is to prevent crashes before they happen and to minimize harm when crashes do happen. Safe systems is a holistic and comprehensive approach that shifts away from current practices. It focuses on both human mistakes and human vulnerability. It also provides a design for a system with many redundancies in place to protect everyone. The arts are a crucial aspect of Kingston's economy, our culture, and our identity. We have long recognized the power of the arts as a draw for tourism, business development, and community spirit. After an intense amount of work by administrators, volunteers, arts commissioners, council members, consultants, and members of the public, the city adopted a comprehensive municipal art plan, municipal public art policy. This policy outlines a way for the city of Kingston to strengthen the arts and culture while at the same time helping our growing creative economy. The document draws on best practices with a focus on sustaining the arts as a primary economic driver of the city. I would like to thank particularly the city's arts director, Kit Potter, as well as Ward 1 Alderwoman Sarah Pasty for their work in bringing this policy to maximum flower. We also passed this last year good cause legislation. This is something that provides vital protection for our tenants. The aim of this law is to improve communications between housing providers and tenants, to set out what rent increases can be considered reasonable and to provide clear guidance for the eviction process. Actually, this is the second time that we passed this legislation. We passed it the first time in January 2022, knowing full well that it challenged what was then state law. But through our pioneering efforts, along with a handful of other city councils in the Hudson River Valley, we saw state representatives finally give municipalities the power to provide these crucial tenant protections. Hence our second unanimous approval of good cause this past year. We also opted into 2 new housing policies. One makes it easier for property owners to add accessory dwelling units, that is, small apartments, to their current properties. The other adds requirements for the inclusion of reduced rent housing units in developments of any appreciable size. These represent the numerous creative ways we have here in Kingston sought to produce more housing at an affordable rate over the last decade. We also have seen the creation of a new ambulance service. We've heard a lot of talk about creating a public good here or publicly funding a public good, and this is an example. When our previous privately held ambulance service sought to impose a massive $1 million fee for continuing service, we immediately balked. We joined with Mayor Noble in quickly turning to create a municipal, publicly held ambulance service. From all accounts that I've heard, at least, this has been a smashing success. Green space is another crucial aspect of our city. In July, the council gave approval for the creation of a community preservation fund. It was widely supported by residents in our November election. This fund, which tags a modest tax onto the sale of houses whose cost is above the median, will provide significant funding for protecting our city's green spaces and meeting our rigorous sustainability goals. And we worked through the approval of the city working in partnership with Scenic Hudson to purchase 70 acres of green space in Wilbur as a permanent natural preserve. We've also looked to preserving the history of our city. We did this by approving the labeling of Temple Emmanuel on Albany Avenue as a locally designated landmark, and we voted to designate Wilbur as a local historic district. This next success is an ambivalent one. It's one that we would rather have not had at all. In September, members of the Common Council joined with residents from the 4th Ward and across the city to rename the former Van Buren Street Park to the memory of DeGeneres Mason. Our municipal heart was torn to pieces when she died, the victim of senseless gun violence here. But we raised her spirit with so many others on a warm September evening with poetry, song, and testimonies to DJ's bright memory. People often say to us on the council that what we do is thankless. We don't do it for the thanks, but we do recognize the importance of gratitude in all that we do. First, I would like to thank all the members of the council for their dedicated work over the past year, as well as providing themes for tonight's speech. I would like to thank Jean Edwards in particular for the work that she's done. On the Warming Center here in Kingston. It's an amazing improvement over what was here before. She's gone through a lot this year, and so to see her complete dedication to that work is an example that all of us should try to live up to. I don't know, I'm so weepy, I apologize. I didn't even have hot peppers for supper. Members of the administration we work with closely every month do an amazing amount of work for the city. I'd like to thank John Toohey, who looks after the money, who helps us immensely in trying to figure out the finances of the city and work to try to make everything that we do here affordable and excellent for our residents. I'd like to thank Dan Baker, the city assessor, who does an amazing amount of work trying to figure out how to evaluate the properties here and to help us understand the impact on property owners of our decisions. Sue Cahill in the planning office does an amazing amount of work in trying to both maintain the historic integrity of the city, to push through important new initiatives in terms of how we look as a city, as well as making sure that new construction fits with what we deem to be proper here. In the Corporation Counsel office, we'd like to thank the work of Barbara Graves Poller, who's been an amazing guide for us in trying to maneuver a number of extremely difficult situations. We'd also like to thank in our office Matt and Bill and the true producer of sanity and in our city government. That would be Janet. Thank you, Janet. In the clerk's office, Elissa Tinty does an amazing amount of work. It's really striking to understand how much they have to do in the clerk's office relating to FOIL requests, and other kinds of paperwork that makes the city run. As well, we'd like to thank Kwame Wafia-Akenton. I practiced, I still got it wrong, sorry, I tried. The work that he does has been extremely helpful in all that we do. Of course, while we may have had successes in the last year, we know that we face a number of challenges. Given the outlandish actions, not accidents, I don't think, of the current presidential administration, it is exceedingly difficult for us to plan prudently for the future. Recent actions have threatened residents of our city in myriad ways, from housing subsidies to infrastructure funds to school aid to the very sense that we belong here no matter our origins. The great challenge before us is to find ways to provide sanctuary from the storms of this unprecedented governmental adversity. How can we reaffirm our commitment, to include all of our neighbors in our vision for prosperity, for safety, for community in this situation? We know that we are stronger when we build together from the ground up. We are safer when we combine the diverse skills and understandings of all our residents. We are truer to our values of freedom when we are responsible to each other. We saw something of these values playing out when we on the council debated a resolution on one of the most contentious issues of our time in the first half of last year. We heard from many different constituents representing a wide array of backgrounds, and they all made compelling arguments. In the end, we settled on a resolution that was the product of community activism, impassioned belief, and a willingness to hear each other and find a solution that represented our entire community. We came down in the end on the side of resolutely working toward peace for all. We, of course, face the perennial challenge of public safety, and there are two areas that are always at the top of our minds. The first concerns crime. We are gratified to see that the number of serious crimes in 2024 was at or below the rate of 2023. We have some initial reports that crime is down in Midtown in particular, but we are acutely aware that any crime in Kingston is too much. We on the council have been resolute in supporting the work of our Kingston Police Department and the work that they do. We are aware of the great sacrifices that officers make patrolling the streets, investigating crimes, and managing the stresses of the job. We thank them for their readiness to train to the utmost to master best practices in their field. We know that this training is a crucial factor that sets our KPD apart from so many other departments around the country. Traffic concerns are probably the #1 issue that council members hear about. We have supported the numerous changes to our streetscape and the study to potentially re-engineer the Route 9 arterial that are intended to reduce crashes and injuries. We know that these changes can be confusing and stressful, but we also know that any traffic injuries are too many. We grieve the lost lives of those who have died on our streets, such as most recently our good neighbor, Gary White. We struggle with the limitations to find funding to completely reimagine all of our streets, with the extended time it takes to locate potentially dangerous spots, design solutions, and construct improvements. We understand the need for increasing drivers' awareness of pedestrians, greater use of traffic calming devices, more directed education, improved and extended sidewalks. We are thus resolutely committed to the values and practices of Safe Streets, that program I mentioned earlier, that will enable us to continually make everyone safer as they traverse the city. To that end, the council is in the process of creating a new committee that will increase communication between the Complete Streets Advisory Council, the mayor's office, the relevant city departments, experts in the field, and our committed activists. Housing, of course, is at the top of our list of issues. The Common Council has been committed to the development of more and better housing since I started here almost 10 years ago. We have done much work, particularly in the creation of affordable housing. We've seen the construction of the Lace Mill, Landmark Place, East Square. We have worked very hard with the mayor and other stakeholders to use creatively legislative and statutory powers to develop safer housing for tenants, such as what we did at Stony Run. We also note that there are a number of new projects underway: the renovation of the old Chis's Heart Street, the Penrose development at the old jail site. And we're looking forward to renovations and expansions at Kingston Housing Authority and the potential for 200 new units at Garrigan Drive. But despite these advances, housing remains a top priority of ours. For example, in February of last year, we revised the focus of the Committee on Community Development to add housing to its agenda. We are monitoring the progress of our new form-based zoning code, which has already yielded positive results in increasing the production of housing in the city. We look forward to collecting data and continuing to fine-tune the code. We face uncertain times, more uncertain than seems necessary. In the face of the chaos coming at us from Washington, in the face of the already difficult problems we have been trying to solve, we cannot lose sight of the bonds of community that hold us together. We must commit ourselves to holding back our cynicism, to improving our ability to communicate with each other. This is the nature of community, sacrificing some of ourselves, our time, our energy, our wealth, for the good of all. To build a wall against the misfortunes that seem headed our way, we must build community through shifting our focus from what our neighbors are doing wrong to what they do well. I believe that the best community we can forge together is the one based on productive compromise with each other. This does not mean capitulation. Rather, it means bringing some of what we all have to offer to make what we have to offer available to all. We are agreed on so many values: the need for housing, the desire for prosperity, the requirement of safety. Let us find the love and community that will enable us to build a better Kingston together. Thanks. All right. Do you want to move this down now or later?
Thank you, Rennie. We now enter into claims and communications. Hearing no discussion, they'll be on file in the clerk's office. Can I get a motion to dispense with the second reading of the general bills? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Bob Dennison. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted at 8-0. We're now entering into the report of committees, starting with resolution number 13.
Resolution 13 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing a 2024 budget transfer in the Building and Safety Department in the amount of $1,746.76 to balance accounts.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 14, please.
Resolution 14 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing a 2024 budget transfer in the Parks and Recreation Department in the amount of $32,950 from fund balance to pay the added expense of an employee's retirement.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 15, please.
Resolution 15 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing a 2024 budget transfer in the Fire Department in the amount of $492,552.89 to cover year-end overages.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 16, please.
Resolution 16 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing a 2024 budget transfer in the city clerk's office in the amount of $70,000 to cover the expenses in judgments and claims.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 17, please.
Resolution 17 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, in support of continued and increased state aid for local governments.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 18, please.
Resolution 18 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, calling upon the New York State Legislature to pass and Governor Kathy Hochul to sign the Hudson Valley Power Authority Act, A 10332 S.9534 of 2024.
Alderman Rennie Scott Childress.
Hi, Madam President, I'd like to move that we change the numbers of the Assembly and Senate bills to reflect the current accurate numbers.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second by Bob Dennison. Any discussion about changing the numbers? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor to make this change?
Aye.
Opposed? Alrighty, and then it's the
Do you want me to read
resolution.
the-
Yeah.
Do you have the numbers?
Can
Do
you
you want me to
read
read
them?
them? Yes. The assembly number is A.02127. And the Senate bill is S.02026.
And then of 2025.
Yes.
So now the resolution is on the floor. Is there any discussion?
Even of the
Of yeah, you voted to make the change.
we voted on it.
We did.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to the
Yeah,
resolution.
to the resolution.
All right.
Rennie Scott Childress, please.
If the system to produce the public good is so large that it requires a monopoly to run it, then it seems to me that private enterprise is clearly the wrong method to run that system. The robber barons of Central Hudson have demonstrated a wanton disregard for the welfare of Hudson Valley residents, as we've heard so eloquently and painfully expressed tonight. We have seen public utilities operated successfully in the past. We know that they can work. Energy democracy is the best way to fuel public power, so I will be in favor of this resolution.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Drew Andrews?
Yeah, thank you, President Schutt. I initially supported bringing this resolution back to the committee for discussion. However, it's clear that Kingston leads in public engagement, and the people today and last couple of months have spoken. So I will be in favor of the HVPA, and we need to literally give power to the people. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Bob Dennison and then Michael Tierney.
Having read the bill, I'm comfortable with the provisions in the bill to take care of organized labor and to take care of the labor force. So I want to endorse that. My only concern is that the pilot element of it, which will address the tax revenue that we receive from Central Hudson, is adequate. And I think there'll be conversations as the bill moves forward in the state assembly and Senate to assure us that we will be made whole at the end. So I will support the bill.
Thank you. Alderman Michael Tierney.
Thank you, President Schott. I wanted to rise to speak on this bill because I think ultimately we've heard from members of our community constantly that Central Hudson is inadequate in providing the services they promised to us. I also want to point out that most of the electricity we lose doesn't come from the power plant. It doesn't come from leaving your lights on. It comes from the lines themselves. and over the course of miles, they lose electricity. And in every other country in the world, the power company is required to pay for that loss. In the United States and in New York, we pay for that loss as ratepayers, not Central Hudson, which is a for-profit company that has no incentive to pay for that loss. So if we have a private company, we will simply never meet our climate goals. We will never have a survivable planet if we continue down this path of private equity owning a utility company. I stand in favor of this resolution, not only for those reasons, but because the necessities of life should not be commodified. And that is part of what we heard. We heard that you cannot live in New York State without heat. You cannot live in New York without electricity. And we simply cannot allow private companies from all over the world, with shareholders all over the world, with our power being supplied from another country, held to the whims of fascism in Washington. So if we own our own power, we are more resilient from the rise of fascism in Washington, and we can make sure that we control the means of production. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Alderwoman Sarah Pasty.
I just want to thank everybody who came out and spoke at this meeting and in previous committee meetings and who sent us communications via email. Thank you for your heartfelt support of this, and I want to say that I also am going to vote in favor of this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, I will call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 19, please.
Resolution 19 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, in support of the Lower Esopus Stream Management Plant.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call. Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Alderman Bob Dennison.
Thank you, President Schott. The people who've worked on this over the last few years, it opens the door to the city for grants and for a coordinated plan for the Esopus stream throughout the county. So I endorse it and will be voting in favor of it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the question? Seeing no one else, I will call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 20, please.
Resolution 20 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the modification to Resolution 113 of 2015.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 21, please.
Resolution 21 of 2025. An ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the public streets of the City of Kingston, New York, removing handicap parking on Walnut Street.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 22, please.
Resolution 22 of 2025. An ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the public streets of the City of Kingston, New York, removing handicap parking on Down Street.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 23, please.
Resolution 23 of 2025, an ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the public streets of the City of Kingston, New York, adding handicap parking on Smith Avenue.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 24, please. Actually, if you could just give us 2 minutes. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We are back with resolution number 24, please.
Resolution 24 of 2025, an ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the public streets of the city of Kingston, New York, adding no parking on Marilena Avenue between Voorhees Avenue and Boulder Avenue.
On the question, Alderman Sarah-Pasty.
Yes. Thank you, President Stout. I would like to propose a change to this ordinance. And this change comes after a conversation with local residents and also with our city engineer. I would like to make the change so that it says no parking on the north side of Marilena Avenue.
So that's a motion to change the verbiage. Is there a second? Rennie Scott Childress seconds it. Any discussion on the change? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. This is for the change. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So the change is made. Can you reread it now, please?
Resolution 24 of 2025, an ordinance amending an ordinance in relation to the traffic on the public streets of the city of Kingston, New York, adding no parking on the north side of Marilena Avenue between Voorhees Avenue and Boulder Avenue.
On the question, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution 25, please.
Resolution 25 of 2025, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, recommending the appointment of Philip Bender Timon to the Board of Assessment Review.
On the question, hearing no discussion, Bob Dennison. Yep, thanks for Phil's service. Any other? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 26, please.
Resolution 26 of 2025, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, approving sale of 46 Grand Street to the Kingston City Land Bank.
On the question, Alderwoman Mickens.
I'm tired. Thank you, Madam President. As it concerns Resolution 26 of 2025, I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution with the following language added, which is that the Kingston City Land Bank, the proposal does not include any agreement to offer municipal parking to the land bank or to provide assistance, financial or otherwise, as it regards the removal of the grease container on the premises.
Thank you. And we actually did make that change ahead of time. So there's a motion to add that into the resolution. Is there a second? Second by Drew Andrews. Any discussion on the change? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor to make this change?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the resolution is adopted to reflect this language, which was the committee's intent. So now I will ask for, or is there any discussion on the actual resolution? Alderwoman Mickens.
Okay, so I'd like to offer our thanks to the RFP Review Committee for their consideration of all of the applications that were submitted to the community, that were submitted by community-based organizations and private businesses. The transfer of this property to the land bank aligns with the city's commitment to increase our stock of affordable housing. The project, as envisioned by the Kingston City Land Bank, proposes the joining of this parcel at 46 Grand Street with another adjacent parcel already controlled by the land bank. This incorporated site would support the development of 12 to 14 much-needed homeownership opportunities in the form of condominiums. The condominiums, as they propose, will be priced at levels affordable to those individuals and families with incomes at 80% or less of the area median income. In addition, the land bank has also agreed that one of those units will be priced at 60% AMI. This homeownership condominium model will allow individuals and families to build equity rather than pay rent, encourage further neighborhood investment, and add to the tax rolls. Once again, the city is thankful to the Kingston City Land Bank, not only for its vision and mission-driven work, but for its continued commitment to providing affordable home ownership and housing opportunities throughout the city of Kingston. And I will be voting in favor of this resolution.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 8-0. Moving to resolution number 27, please.
Resolution 27 of 2025. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, issuing a negative declaration for the Pike Plan canopy demolition and rationale for said demolition.
On the question, Alderman Bob Dennison and then Alderman Michael Tierney.
I support this resolution. Thank you, Madam President. And the finding of negative declaration regarding the removal of the canopies in Uptown. I've carefully reviewed the material prepared by the city engineer and the material submitted by the public. I have a great deal of experience in creating, reviewing, and approving environmental documents, and in my opinion, the possibility that the canopy, completely reconstructed in 2012, may be eligible for inclusion in the historic register is not sufficient trigger for a full EIS. We would be remiss in our duty to the public, to the taxpayers, not only in spending their money, but in the additional time to create a document that will result in the same conclusion as the document we have before us. I will vote in favor of the resolution.
Thank you. Alderman Michael Tierney.
Thank you, President Schott. I love the Pike Plan. It is partially why I moved to Kingston, specifically to Uptown. It's a unique structure that defines Uptown Kingston. I think it's part of what makes Uptown Kingston unique. No other city has this structure that protects pedestrians from the rain. It's the only place in the city where you don't trip and fall because of the ice or because of the misshapen bluestone sidewalks. It's lit up at night in a way that makes our city, even at night, so magical and inviting. I think that the Pike Plan, in some effort, is worth reconstructing. I think it's clear from the information that we have shown that this iteration of the Pike Plan does need to come down. The issue that I have is that we really have no substantial plan for what comes next. We're going to repair some of their facades, but the city has largely been not providing a grand master plan that the successor of the Pike Plan deserves. And the thing that really makes me so sad in our EAF is the aesthetic resources. And I will read from it because I don't know if any member of the public has had the chance to read from it. Additionally, it will render the streetscape similar to other blocks on Wall and North Front Street, which will render the Uptown area more uniform and consistent. Why on earth do we want to sand away the edges from what makes our city unique and special? Why do we want to deprive the thousands of tourists that come to Uptown Kingston, that pay for why we're able to do so much in our city, that they get engaged under the Pike Plan, that they get married in front of the Pike Plan on Wall and North Front? It is a defining factor of what makes Kingston, Kingston. So I hope that when we vote to take this down, we also have a consolidated effort that maybe we all work together to hire a consultant, to put out an RFP, to talk about what comes next, because the Pike Plan is an intangible benefit to the city of Kingston. I do agree that it's beyond repair, though, and it does have to come down. But for these reasons that I've stated, I'm voting against. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no more discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. So it passes 6-2. The nay votes were Alderwoman Mickens and Alderman Tierney. Moving to resolution 28, and just for council, as you're reading the legislation list, there is was a clerical mistake. So it's resolution 28 is the bond for this, which I'll ask for a long roll, and resolution 29 should not have been on your list. So resolution 28 is the bond. Thank you.
Resolution 28 of 2025, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the adoption of a bond ordinance for the sum of $1,200,000 for the removal of the Pike Plan canopies on North Front Street and Wall Street. Alderman Shabbat,
Yes.
Alderman Hirsch,
Absent.
Alderman Pasty,
Yes.
Alderman Tierney,
Can I speak on my vote?
Yes.
I want to thank the city engineer's office for the work that they've done to take down part of it. I think that was done in a very respectful way that minimized the disruption uptown. And I'm pretty confident that when we take this down, this will be under that same consideration. I'll still be voting no, but thank you.
Alderman Scott Childress,
Yes.
Alderman Edwards,
Yes.
Alderman Mickens,
No.
Alderman Dennison,
Yes.
Alderman Andrews.
The bond passes 6-3. That concludes 6-2. 6-2. Sorry, it's late. That concludes our communications for the evening. Does anybody have anyone they would like to close in memory of before we adjourn? Alderman Bob Dennison?
I'd like to close in memory of Wes Dangler, who was a longtime Kingston resident who died last week. He was a 25-year IBM employee, but he spent much of I knew him after he retired mostly, and he had a long retirement. He was a music lover, passed up an opportunity to go to the Eastman School of Music to become an IBM mathematician, which is kind of shocking. Wes was a big man. He was a quiet man. He was really a wonderful guy, willing to step up anytime. He's deeply missed by his husband, Terry Earls, and Wes will be missed by us all. So.
Thank you. Condolences. Anyone else? Hearing no one else, I will stand for an adjournment. Would you like to make a motion to adjourn? Aye. Second by Jeannie Edwards. Then we hereby stand adjourned until the next regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you all very much.